$100,000. Granted, if it's less, most people are not gonna say anything. But
Right.
I think it's important to be close when you
Okay.
publish that for sure. So it'd be up to you guys. I mean, if you wanna meet with him and you're okay with me publishing the max levy, we could do that. And if you choose to reduce it, we can. Because after we do the max levy, then you'll set the hearing for the actual budget, and that's when you want your numbers final.
Well, and I think his biggest thing he had was this increase in additional wages, the only big increase he had this year. So, I mean, to keep the ball rolling, I think we just need to explain to John, we're gonna take it out. If you need it, we'll do a budget amendment instead of trying up the process here.
Okay.
Okay? Is that agreeable with everybody?
Yeah.
All right. Okay,
One more.
one
Recorder.
more?
Yeah, you had.
The recorder.
The recorder was after GIS.
Oh, I made a goddamn check mark there. Did you do that?
You skipped it.
That's what happened when the orders down here like that. Okay, recorder. You want to justify yours?
The salaries, is that where it's the salaries? Are we just talking about the salaries?
Yeah, you had a proposal
Yeah.
moving the deputy and then also proposing to more part-time hours.
Yeah, I have my deputy right now at 70 and in that budget to move her 75% of my salary. I did not give her an increase last year, so I do feel that's fair. And then Sarah is part-time in my office. When she did part-time GIS, assessor, recorder, we were cut hours at that time with the intent that that would go back to where it was at some point. And there's already been discussion with Cindy and with the possible retirement in the office that would happen sooner than later. So I just felt like, so should that not happen, that money would go back, but if, just be putting it back where it was prior to Sarah's hours getting cut on the recorder's office in order to take on GIS.
So you think right now with the discussion, you think that you're not going to get the additional hours from her that you want?
It would depend when Judy would retire.
Has there been any talk of that?
December of 22.
Oh, okay. I knew I'd gotten an email regarding it, so I just wanted to be prepared.
At 22.
So you don't need that money right now. Okay. And you could actually put this.
That would be, I know Cindy emailed me saying she needed Sarah more hours potentially, so I just knew this discussion had started. I did not know about that date for sure.
So would, there again,
And I'd only asked for half an hour, 30 minutes a day extra of Sarah, so I wasn't taking a lot of time.
Yeah, and at that time, I just told her that then I maybe wouldn't, the joint sharing wouldn't work, if I just keep getting hours taken away slowly. So if at that time it didn't work, then I would hire someone to do full or part-time position.
how much additional help do you think you're going to need, or do you think you need?
It was always between 20 and 25 hours a week. We have not been able to work on a background project since.
So how much do you have in your budget right now for that? Does that include the 6,500?
That,
Yeah,
That
the
part-time
20
salary?
hours that you've been using in the past. Is this 6,500 above that?
that part-time salary line
Yeah.
would be a 20 to 25 hour position at $16 an hour, if I remember right, which they wouldn't necessarily start that. I think that's what Sarah was saying.
It's above what was in the budget.
So this is above that 20 hours, it's 6,500 then.
Let's either 20 or 25, yes.
Okay. So if you're not sure you're gonna need it, there again, would we be better off taking it out and do a budget amendment if we have to?
That's fine.
So just for numbers purposes, the deputy is okay,
Yeah, that's another discussion.
Oh,
What do you
okay.
guys thought on that?
Well, I don't think you can move a deputy up anytime you want to, right? I mean,
Well, you can,
It has
but
to
you
be
gotta
right.
make sure you have the funds available, and I
Yeah.
think what she's doing is just making it a budgetary thing, so you're aware of it, which is,
well, she really doesn't have the funds available. I think you're,
well, that's why, I think that's why she's got it in the
Okay.
budget for next year,
yeah.
for next year.
So did you look at her budget?
Yes,
Does it look okay to you? I mean, there's 89, here that's almost $9,000 more than last year.
well, 6559 of it is salary.
That we're gonna take out.
So that goes back down then to
Okay,
like two
then
something.
that makes sense. So you have that in here.
Yeah.
You have that in your
Which part are you referring to? The 75% or the part-time?
The part-time.
Yeah, it's in there,
Part-time is
current,
in-
it's in there currently, because I was
Alright.
under the impression that would happen sooner or later, but if it's not going to, that's fine.
I was unclear about that.
So what's your guys' thoughts on the 70 to 75%?
I think she should be able to do that.
What's that?
I think she should be able to do that, as long as she budgets for
Well, I
it.
think the head doesn't have to be approved by the board.
No, she's already a deputy, it's just,
Oh, that's it.
and since she, in order to do that, if you don't have funds
We
available,
run the funds.
Yeah,
That's right.
that's why we're talking about it.
So clarification on the budget part, Dean had said 8977, it would go down to 2418.
Whatever,
And that would be
6,500.
just regular.
Yep, the 2%.
6,500. Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, is that agreeable? We'll just take that out, and if you do need it, you get a hold of us, we'll make a budget amendment.
Sure.
Okay, so those two changes. So on this list, the only two changes are taken out, the proposed salary increases for, additional salary increase for the attorney's office of $8,442, and also on the recorder of $6,559. Those would be the only two changes. Okay, is that agreeable?
Yep.
Once, twice, thrice, done. Okay. Now, do you want to get into moving money and stuff that we?
Well, for sure. So I gave you guys all a copy of the 22 budget. Obviously, we just made some changes today with that, so we're gonna talk about obviously ending fund balances and levies being reduced slightly. I mean, when you're talking less than $20,000, it doesn't really affect it that much, so we can still utilize these numbers. When I look at this, I don't always really concern myself with the levies because I feel that that's a board thing. The levies, that's what people are gonna complain to you guys about is the levies.
Yep.
I myself am more concerned with the fund balances because obviously we wanna make sure we've got money in reserves in case we have something happen, but also money to function. We don't collect taxes every single month of every year or all year long. We only collect them twice a year. So it's important to have reserves there to offset those low times. So when I looked at the ending fund balances, I honestly thought they all looked pretty good except for the general fund. The general fund concerned me. I can find my little cheat sheet here, sorry. It's on the front. You'll see it shows $1,282,705. Now, that probably seems like a lot. It's more than the year before, but keep in mind, we put the farm proceeds in there. Last year, we used about $400,000 of that to offset the tower project. So there's about 700,000 of the farm proceeds that are sitting in that $1.2 million. So we were always going to use that to offset this ISIX program. So in my opinion, that money has already been earmarked for that project. So take that out because that's for something else, and you're left with $555,000. My opinion is that's not enough. So that's one thing we need to address. So in fiscal 20. Let me see what it was. It was more than that. In fiscal 20, it was 770,000. So we're not talking about a huge amount, you know, a couple $100,000. I think you could be more comfortable, but when it gets down to $500,000, that makes me a little nervous.
Where are you looking at that? Where's that number
I
at?
wish these pages were numbered, but I think it's like page 3.
Isn't it fun?
No,
Yeah,
more
they used to have
towards
a
the back.
number.
Towards the back.
The 5th page from the back. At the top, it says service area 0. And the balances I'm looking at are on line 36.
Why are you thinking 500,000 is getting a little thin?
Is the treasurer still here? Don't you think that's a little low?
Yeah.
Yeah. So she's the one that's got to worry about there being money there when we're all writing checks and paying everybody. I just think it's a little low.
Payroll, any, is insurance comes out about that time?
Well, when it's tough because in certain months they buy, like state, secondary roads, buys and stuff, and winter and stuff.
Okay.
That stuff they won't pay up front. Well, we're not taking in taxes in July or,
Correct.
you know, things like that. So it's, you want to be able to purchase those things, but a lot of times, like you said, we're not taking the big amount of money in either, so it's just a little stressful.
And I think we've all found out that the engineer is also looking at a large amount of rock this year too, which I don't know when that's payable and when his funds are.
But that'll come out of rules.
It comes out of roads, which is,
Okay,
but you know, the treasurer looks at it as one big pot of money.
Right.
Am I right?
Right.
Yeah, okay. I don't want to speak for her, but so when Rhodes makes a $300,000 purchase
Mhm.
and it's July, ouch.
yeah,
And you only have $500,000 left in there. Now you're down to 200, you know, because it's all, I don't know. It just makes me nervous. I like to see it around the 700,000-800,000, and that's still a little low, but I can live with that because that's where we were at last year, and it seems things are going well. I think. I haven't heard otherwise, but
So is it a cash flow issue that you're concerned about?
it's the ending fund balance that I'm
Yeah,
concerned with.
but I mean,
I don't like, I mean, this is projecting that if you take out the farm proceeds, because we earmarked those for the tower project, at the June 22, we'll have $500,000 in our account, June 30th, in the general fund.
right,
Well, a lot of stuff comes out of the general fund. And then you've got to get through July and August and September, because a lot of people wait till the end.
Yeah.
That's 3 months. That's not enough in my.
Especially when you get a $1 million bill.
so what is your proposal to rectify that issue?
You either raise the levy above 3.5, which you can do for certain reasons, or you take money from local option and put it in there.
Which we haven't done yet.
But normally when we use local option money, we're lowering the levy. This, I'm not, you would just be putting money in there to
Keep the levy low.
To stay
keep it where
fluid.
it's at.
Keep it where it's at.
Yeah. Now, there's also that farm proceed money that's there. We're talking about $700,000. And if you look at the debt levy, I think that might be a page behind. Okay, that's actually the page behind. It'll show you the 2 projects, the jail and the radios. So we need $405,946 to make our bond payment for the radio project next year, and $711,450 for the jail. So that's what we're levying for debt.
But we're levying for those.
Correct. But what we've done in the past, or what we did last year, we lowered the general fund levy by about, whatever it was last year, 300,000, and took that from the farm proceeds to offset that.
And that was,
We levy for the debt because we want to do that, but we lowered the general fund levy to offset that.
And I.
because, no, let me, because the reason we want to keep those things in debt service is, remember, debt service is taxable on everything, including
Right.
TIF.
Right.
So otherwise, those TIF projects, we do not get any revenue off of.
Right.
If we're gonna do anything, I want to move the money to the general to offset the regular levy versus the debt service. So I agree with what she's saying.
Didn't we though last year, or didn't, when we did the farm proceeds, didn't we consider doing that over a 3-year period instead of one
That's
and
because,
then?
Yep.
that's because we were going with a lease to purchase.
Right.
And we changed our
And
plans
now
and went to
we've-
debt service because of the bond rate was so cheap that we
Right.
could do it. We saved like $120,000 by doing a debt service.
But should we just take the bond, what the bond cost, and take that out and leave the rest?
So, yeah, I mean, what was talked about before is if you look at the general fund, you're levying the max, which is 3.5. You would lower that $5.3 million that you're trying to collect, you'd lower that $400,000. So you'd only collect
4.9.
4.9, you pull the 400 from reserves, from the farm proceeds, and there'd be roughly 300,000 left to do that same thing the following year.
At next year.
And I have no problem with that. My only concern is, I think, the general fund as a whole. Now granted, those farm proceeds are floating in there, so it makes it look better than what it is.
But
But if you want to use those farm proceeds for the tower project, you need to make sure there's enough so we aren't grabbing from that
Right.
to flow.
When's the tower project due?
The loan payment, that's on the sheet. Oh, yeah, well, I know the jail ones do like May or June, like, for the following year. I'm not sure when the radio will be because we haven't paid it before. Like, the big payment we made was to Motorola, pay it off, and then our debt payment won't be due until, I'm hoping it's like the same time, but I'm not 100% sure. I could probably look, well, I might have it in here.
I would assume.
So
I know, I think we make an interest
Stay in there
payment
for
in
another year.
December. That's interest only.
Yeah, what we didn't pay, we'll just leave in there
Oh my God, I found it.
next year.
All right, first payment, well, yeah, the first payment will be an interest payment due December 1st. The interest and principal payments due June 1st, so it's the same as the jail. Which is kind of nice because it gives you all year to collect taxes and then.
In advance, yeah.
So,
Okay, so how much do you think we should move over?
well, it depends. Got two options. So we have $300,000 left from the farm proceeds that'll be sitting in the general fund, which would bring your balance, instead of it being 555, it'd be closer to 800. You could watch that, monitor it, see how it looks, because we don't always spend every dime we budget for, and we don't always collect every dime we think we're going to. So those ending fund balance can fluctuate a lot. I mean, you might have a department that, or even have 3 departments that turn in 5,000 because they didn't spend it. Well, there you got 15,000. It just fluctuates. But if you guys felt comfortable with leaving that 300,000, even though we know it's farm proceeds, if you'd be okay with that floating in there to cover that shortfall, I think we're gonna have, or maybe close to have, I'd be okay with that, because you can move local option money at any time with a budget amendment. If we think it's low, we can move it. Or if we get to the end and we're like, ooh, we've used $100,000 of the farm money, let's take care of that now. So we have that 300,000 next year. So I would be okay with that. But I just want you to know that the actual general fund money is only $500,000 as the budget
So
says.
if we leave that farm proceeds there, then we'd be at over 800,000.
I would use that, I mean, that would be like your cushion. It would maybe cover you in those short months, July and August.
Then I guess my other thought would be, if we do that, then I would like to, because our local option fund balance, you got that at,
Estimated 1.3.
That aren't we doing mental health?
Well, that's another discussion.
where the hell did I see that at?
I have it written down because it's in the other column.
Oh, it's part of the other, yeah,
It's-
1.4.
Yeah, but the other column comes at almost $1.5 million. Most of that is local
So
option.
1.3 is local option.
That's a very conservative estimate.
And local option, that's figure we're gonna keep getting in through the year, what we got committed.
Yeah, and that was just a
And I
guess.
would not be opposed to moving some of that local option to offset some of our mental health dollars, like we have in the past.
Correct. So, I mean,
And I'm not saying we do all of it,
But where, this is curiosity's sake, mental health, are we essentially billing the taxpayers for any portion? Is it 20%?
Yes.
30%?
we're billing, we're taxing for the total thing, but we're offsetting the general levy on the
With-
other side. 'Cause
Okay,
Which is what I want to see, is that we're showing them what the mental health is costing.
and we're putting that
But we're offsetting it on the general levy
by
by.
using local option sales tax. We're directly applying that to taxpayer relief.
Right.
Am I correct? in saying
Correct.
that?
yes. So in the past, we've done 100%.
Okay.
Whatever we were levying, we took that out of local option. We were able to, last year, we didn't have a supplemental levy at all.
Right.
And then the general fund levy was lowered.
Have you done any numbers with moving anything, what the levy would be then?
Well, I mean, you can look at. So right now, the mental health levy is 0.46949. So, because we're levying for $711,000 for mental health this year, it went up from the year before. So if you have $1.3 million in local option, how much of that do you want to use? If you use it all,
You ain't gonna have much there either.
you're gonna have about 600,000 left in there.
And you said
And you
that was
got a jail.
conservative, that 1.3 was
Yeah,
conservative.
it is conservative.
And Rich, are you looking at being at 36 to 39?
39,
Potentially 42 next year? You
yes.
guys are gonna go to that 42 at some point. They're just not doing it all at once, so.
4275 next year, and I don't see any other way around it. Our reserves are getting down. We want to be able to beat payroll if we don't.
And we actually aren't even levying for the whole amount because we have some money in reserves.
Right.
And we were told by Dawn that we needed to spend those down.
Right, there's a little bit like about
By
100.
doing this, we left about $17,000.
Let me ask you this, would you feel comfortable if we moved 500,000 on local option back to the general? To offset mental health?
What was that, Gene?
Move like 500,000 on local option to offset mental health?
Boy, I wish the jail was done. I'd be able to answer that question. I'm just always worried that everything costs more than what they say it's going to.
Exactly.
I mean, right now, so far, it's been minor.
Why, yeah, but I just am feared that this 10% run over could hit us right upside the head yet. We're over, and I don't know what percentage we're over, but I don't think it's maybe more than 2% right now, but it does concern me. Courtney and I have talked about this. It concerns us a little bit.
I mean, obviously, you have at least half a million. You're still gonna be probably in the 800,000 range in there. And like I said, it was a conservative estimate. I don't know. As a taxpayer, I say that sounds great, because you're lowering my taxes.
Well, that's what I'm trying to do, is get that levy down to what
Yeah,
it was last year.
I guess that would not cause me probably any sleepless nights or anything. I think that's, you're still taxing them for a couple $100,000 of it. And if you're able to do it, instead of doing it all in one lump, you do some of it this year, and then next year when we're levying more for it again, you can adjust it a little bit then too, so.
What is, you think if we, let's say 400,000 or 500,000, would we get down to last year's levy then?
Close.
I don't want the levy to get any less than what it was last year, right now.
Well, I'd like to see it close. Yeah, would I like for it to go down? Yeah, I would, but we've got a lot of big ticket items sitting out there. And we knew that was gonna happen, or when we went forward with it. You can't spend that kind of money without it affecting something.
When we went forward with, it's a
Jail.
The jail and the radio system, but my only concern is, and yes, I want to keep the levy and the taxes low, but how sustainable is this? 'Cause mental health is gonna be a big issue if we're not gonna receive any funding.
It's been that way for years.
I'm just worried about the future,
I
that's
know.
why I asked
But
sustainability.
it keeps that up every year.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna feel this forever.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, actually, Gene, you and I talked about that the other day, that there's, I mean, you know, when I started, and as long as you've been in here, the two things that have been the highest have been what? Mental health and secondary roads. Jail has picked up the ball, and now jail and the sheriff's department has taken the lead.
But I will,
But the thing about it is, what we did say that, that actually because of regionalization, the cost of mental health has pretty much stayed pretty static. So
It's managed to take that big,
it's
Yeah,
taking that out. And
it's
that's
flattened
actually
it
at
out
one
a
point, I
little
think it actually,
it's plateaued, so.
I think it actually, at one time, it created us some benefits. But now, we got to the point where all the mandates that they're pushing on us, it's gonna start going the other way.
well,
I mean, especially when you're not getting any other revenues from the state. Now, I
Yeah.
understand they were talking about throwing 15 million in or something like that. Well, that's
What's
like,
15
that's like
million?
throwing a piece of grease in the frying pan.
Well, yeah, throwing a little bone to the dog,
Yeah.
that's all that is.
it's, you know, and it's a lot like, thank God we're not there, but the Iowa workforce, that thing that we just started, that, I was scared to death that was gonna balloon into another mental health region, where we have a lot of expenses and the state was walking away from us with income. But that has not happened yet, and I have a feeling, the feeling I have on that board is, if it does, there'll be hell to pay, because there's a lot of people who are not gonna go down that path again. So,
Okay, so the urban levy, we're asking for 0.380664. And then the rural levy is 0.2924. And the mental health levy is 4.7 roughly. So you could get pretty darn close. In my opinion.
And that's at a $500,000.
What?
At a $500,000. And we
Well,
do-
I don't know, I don't have this thing in front of me that's gonna calculate if I change it, but if the mental health levy is 0.47, I'm rounding, and we're higher by 0.38 on the urban side and 0.29 on the rural side. If we do reduce that, you're gonna be really close, I think,
Really close.
to being at last year's levy.
Okay. Well, that's the way it certainly looked to me,
Yeah.
is that we're gonna be really close. And
Because, yeah,
I mean, we've got-
Unfortunately,
we
with
don't
the
have-
values going up,
we don't have nearly the spending this year that we had last year.
I thought the budget looked really good this year,
well, we've got,
considering what's all going on, but,
we had 300,000 in new money from increase in valuation this year.
That helps.
Yes.
But even Gene, I mean, I didn't total it up here totally, but, you know, our, last year, just as far as our, departments the grand total of our departments increases over the year before was 1.1 million. This year it's 176,000. So,
But you gotta
so
remember,
we just don't have the spending.
well, and that might be because of the projects. I mean, like secondary roads, this next year, I don't think he's got a lot of asphalt. He does too.
Well,
That's
you know, the secondary roads, as far as their budget, of course, last year they went over on their budget,
But
but,
they're also spent up on a lot of their forward spending, so they're gonna be kind of calm for a little
I was
while.
gonna say, they're not asking for an increase this year.
No.
They're actually adding $100,000 back to the budget. You know, the big increases this year were, was the county attorney.
It's the levy rate, so it's 0.38,
And the sheriff at 71,000.
0.29 on the rural. I'm just looking at this quick, just to kind of give us an idea. So the supplemental levy as it sets is 0.32, I'm gonna just round up, it's 0.33, which is levying almost $500,000. It's 496. So if you took 500,000, you're looking at about 0.34, 0.33 roughly of reducing the levy. So the rural levy would end up being less, and the urban levy would, well, you're looking at 0.38 versus 0.33, so it'd be really close.
So you're saying a general supplement. So what?
I'm just using that because it's got about the dollar amount we're looking
Yeah.
at, so I know it'll reduce the levy about that.
So that would bring down the general, and which is last year, we had 3.42 in the general basic.
Mhm.
And I think we were at, we had proposed 0.32 in the general supplement. We wound up with 0 in that.
Yep, yep.
So we'd be basically probably leaving our general basic at 3.5 to do away with the supplemental.
Yeah, you'd reduce it just a little bit, because if we're doing 500 and we're at 496, it's gonna be close. You know, yeah, basically you'd just be getting rid of the supplemental. Which, me looking at it, I'm like, wow, we're building a brand new jail. We're putting all these new towers and have this brand new radio system, and my taxes didn't hardly go up at all.
Well, don't worry, they'll probably go up because the valuation went up.
Not on my house. That's a joke, that's a joke. But I was very pleasantly surprised with this, because I thought, oh, shoot, they're gonna, you know, it's gonna look bad, because we've got these 2 huge projects going on, but really,
Well, I think
Looks
we
pretty
get past this year when these projects are done, we're gonna have a better feel where we're at too. Have a lot of the
Next year will be a struggle, because I don't know what road use tax, it turned out to be pretty close this year. Can we do that back to back? I don't know. That could be a variable that I don't understand what's gonna happen next year, but people may not go back to the office. So that's gonna affect it, but the more things they order, the more trucking, that's where we picked it up at. So,
But, you know, in all honesty, you bring up a good point. I am very surprised this year that road use tax is where it's at and local option. I mean, our local option has actually been increasing, right?
it has, and I think that has to do with people just kind of staying close to home.
Well, and I think also another thing that's happened, I think it's also getting collected on the stuff that's being ordered online too.
well, yeah, that's true, but Courtney's also touched on a thing too. There's a lot more home projects,
Yep.
lumber yards are busier, and people are staying local. They're not going out, which I'm glad they're doing that. So it really
Yeah.
helps our local people stay here.
I think that we are in a very good place. I mean, with what has happened this year, and I agree with you, you know, with all having these 2 major projects. Things look good. I mean,
Yeah,
and I think a lot of it is to credit has to go to you people too for being budget,
absolutely.
doing your budget right. returning stuff back to the budget. The Carroll County has always been in a strong financial position.
Well,
I think it's
yeah,
because we have been concerned.
I think, well, yeah, but I also think the valuations have been a big thing. When you say, Cindy, I think that, I mean, with the new construction, the year that we only had one house in, that affected our budget. We just didn't have the dollars available. And I think it's, what, $32 million higher this year than it was over last year, as far as the valuation is concerned. You're looking for it, and I think it's always been that it's been new growth in the county as far as new homes and stuff like that have generated the increase in our valuation.
This year.
My house isn't going up. My house, I mean, that's generally where it comes from. Is that this year, and it's going to be significantly more next year, correct?
I don't think yours is significant more.
No, it wasn't.
Countywide, it's supposed to be.
Countywide,
Countywide, yeah.
Yeah.
Countywide, it's significantly
On
more.
the rural side, yeah.
But I mean, as far as, and I think that's a very true statement that you make, Courtney, when you say my house isn't going to go up that high, because it's not. It's going to be new homes.
So,
Yeah, not so much new homes even. We've got $10 million worth of new construction between that Western Iowa Networks and Mother Inn and Champion, for all of that right in there. I mean.
That's what I was gonna say, our commercial has been, we're very diversified county. That's helped us. I always said that, we're so diversified, that helps us.
When we always looked at where our levy or taxable rate is concerned, Neil always used to say that, we're 97th and 98th or something like that. Well, the two counties that are better than us are Ida County and Dickinson County. And Dickinson County is up there because of all the high valuation in the properties around the lake.
Mhm.
So that's what is ahead of us. That's where so I think it's the valuation. I think spending is one good thing. I mean, we haven't borrowed any money in 53 years, but we've changed this. We've changed our spending patterns. We have other departments spending more money, and but this year was very favorable that way.
so we had $4,371,656 in new dollars.
4 million,
4.3.
4.3 million.
Which is a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot.
But if we thought things looked good this year. If expenses stay similar and she's got a lot more value we get to work with next year, I think it'll even be better.
We have potential.
Just the way I had that figured, I increased it by amount of $300,000 roughly, new dollars.
Now, did Vanguard help this situation, or did that come into effect next year? Next year's fiscal budget?
It'll be for the 21
Okay,
assessment year, so it'll be
2022.
22, 23, September 22, March of 23. Yeah, after that, I was just looking at, just going off of building permits. We had 23 new dwellings in the county, and that's over $7 million right there for those. And then the commercial building permits, and I only count the ones that are 100,000 or higher, I don't count the little ones, 9.7 million. So, and those won't be at 100% for 21, because some of them were started and some of them will flop over to the next year when they complete it,
But it takes 18 months to order taxable, right? So is everybody agreeable that we try to move some local option then over? I guess, Courtney, could you do some figuring with that? Just anywhere between 400,000 and 500,000, whatever it is, so we can get to about the same levies we did a year ago.
I agree with that.
If you do that, you're probably looking at 500.
Yeah.
To get it where you were at.
And then we'd still have then over 800,000 in local option.
Conservatively.
And that Glidden is this is the last year for that payment on
The
that?
tip?
Yeah.
Yeah, ICP, that should be paid off this, I think maybe the next payment.
So
I'd have to
that's all
look.
figured in there though, right?
Well, yeah, but it's pretty minimal. I
Yeah.
mean, $40,000. That's another good thing, that'll go back on the tax rolls, so. It doesn't help your debt much. It helps everybody else. And that's a pretty big increment there. I think it's close to $10 million, so. That'll be nice. But yeah, I think they have one more payment left, and then that loan will be paid back.
So it really is just almost a cash flow issue. It's just being able to move money around and
Yes,
have it in a position where it's not going to, I mean, we can avoid increasing the levy, then, I think that's definitely the route you want to go. And is there any possibility, what is it going to take to actually lower it?
I think if we lower, we're going to be kind of cutting ourselves short on the local option, particularly with the projects going on, and if there would be some, at least gives us a cushion to do that.
so yeah, if
I
you,
don't like to use local option as a cushion, but that's what it is, because we can float the money back and forth, and we can use it for anything. That's the lawful purpose.
and if you do $500,000, your rural levy is gonna be less than last year. And your general levy or your urban levy is gonna be really darn close. So,
So why does it that makes the rural levy go down more than what the urban?
well, because the rural levy's less. I shouldn't say that. The difference between 22 and 21 is less. It's 0.29, and the difference between the urban and the 2 years is 0.38.
It seems like
There's a
every year
bigger, and the reason that is because we got supplemental in here with levying, I mean, that's a huge thing, but the rural asking must be a little less overall,
Okay.
which is just your sheriff, deputies, and what roads needs.
So is that agreeable with everybody?
So we're gonna basically move $500,000 out of local option sales tax.
Right.
Okay, very good.
And basically what that's gonna do is offset the general supplemental levy.
So they
100%.
keep us very close to last year's levies.
Yeah.
Very
The
close,
rural levy should be less than last year, and the urban will be pretty close.
pretty close.
Yeah, pretty close.
Does that make you sleep easier, Lisa?
Did you say no?
What do you want then?
She wants an eight.
What do you want?
Eight-digit number to maneuver
What
with.
did you say? I think you said that made me sleepy.
Sleep easier.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Well, it would help if we got better interest rates on the money too.
That'd be nice too.
All right. Anybody else got any comments on this budget? Otherwise, do we want to go and then propose?
I just have one question. Will the money for the courthouse remodel, relocation, whatever, is that going to be in next year's budget or?
Well, there's actually some money in the capital line right now.
40,000, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right around.
So
that
we
gonna
can-
be
we can
enough?
Start with, well, who knows what we do, but
So that would be a
I'm
budget
hoping,
amendment,
I'm hoping it'll be a lot. If we do something before we get into a new budget.
but we'll be in fiscal year
We'll probably do
22.
We'll probably do a budget amendment
Okay.
and utilize possibly some local option or wherever we find it extra money. They don't seem to give it,
It'd be
they don't
nice
seem to
if-
give companies grants.
it'd be nice if we could avoid a budget amendment when we do that.
I think you could definitely make it a budgetary item.
I think so too. So kind of what you're saying, Scott, is are we gonna determine?
I'm just saying, should that 40 be higher?
Yeah, determine an amount that we should be putting in the budget. That should be higher. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what my question is because I think we're going to find out it's going to be a big surprise how much it costs just to make it.
Well, I think that's a good point. I would be in favor of increasing that because, I think, we talked about, we didn't want to tie the jail to the courthouse because we did not want to make any ADA exceptions. But I think the day is coming when that's not going to be the case, when they are going to force us to make those improvements.
And I think we all know $40,000 doesn't get
Probably
you.
had
Well, and I guess when I'm looking at this current budget year, I see us only doing anything would be with the boardroom right now.
Yeah, but that could be, and we haven't determined what we're gonna do there yet.
Well, are you suggesting we add more in there?
I just wanted to bring it up. I'm not,
Because we did that, Rich, did we?
there was 40,000
Yeah.
I saw in
We
there.
kind of jacked it up a little bit this year.
You stuck at 10, you stuck 10 in, didn't you?
I think we stuck 10 or 15.
Oh, I thought-
I think it was 10.
I think it's 10.
Was it 10?
Um, You can drop $100,000 in that building on various things and not even know where you put it. I mean, first of all, we may be faced with some driveway issues out front once the construction's over. Patchwork at best may cost us quite a bit of money. You know, so there's just a never-ending list of places to look, to spend it. If you look, you can find it. It's
Well,
just,
but that could be in Zach's budget, those types of things.
Yeah.
Workhouse budget, maintenance issues and stuff like that, want to increase that, but you're talking, I think you're talking about capital expenses. Your capital one.
we very well could look, when you're doing some of the remodel, do you want to clean up some of the heating, cooling issues at the same time? Do you even want to crack that open? If you crack that open, you know that's expensive. So,
Well, I guess I kind of echo on Scott's deal there. I mean, if we're looking at a good year next year, you know, I mean, as far as valuation wise, and if we don't have anything, if, I would think that if the spending, you know, stays relatively what it's been here with this year, we should be in a pretty good, really pretty good spot next year. And
So are you suggesting we put some in this year again? We increase that?
well, I think I would tend to increase it a little bit more too. I don't know.
Well, if we
Yeah, it was
would,
15.
it was 15. Yeah, I thought it was.
Okay.
So if we added 20, I'm not just using that figure, that wouldn't change the,
Increasing it $5,000?
no, increase it another 20. That
So-
wouldn't even, that wouldn't increase our levy much, would it?
No, because that's about what we took off the table with those budget decisions. Wasn't it about 85 and 45 or something like
Roughly,
that?
it was,
Yeah.
It was just a little over 10, about 11,000.
Yeah, kind of a wash, actually. Pretty close.
So is that what you guys think? Should we add another 20 in the capital?
I'm okay with that.
I am.
it sits there even, right, even if we don't use it, and if we wanted to, we could add a little bit more.
Yeah, we would.
Well, I mean, that's what we do with vehicles in a lot of departments, you know, with Carrie as far as the vehicle. She puts so much money in her, you know. And Jason, you do the same thing. You know, as far as capital expenses. Capital.
What did we decide on here?
20?
20?
So it'd be a total of $35,000?
Yep.
Just to remind everybody, when you put money in the capital fund, it can only be used for
capital
capital expenses, so just so we're all aware of that.
I think we'll be fine there.
Well, and like I say, the only thing foresee this year, I think, would be just to do the budget or the boardroom or whatever we decide here. But, you know, things could move on fast. I
You
think.
gotta remember, that's 18 months from now when the budget's over.
They keep coming,
A
though.
lot can happen in 18 months.
Oh, boy.
You got that right.
Well, I always said with an 18-month budget, you're doing a swing scientifically. Well, yeah, I'll leave you, put the other name in. Because you're 18 months out. Okay, next thing, if that's all on the budget, set the public hearing for fiscal year proposed property tax levy.
I'd like to do this on March 1st at 9:30.
She had paper this week, right?
March 1st.
Yeah, at 9:30.
Okay.
And you're gonna adjust that levy down too, with it? Okay. So we should be pretty close to what we were.
March 1st.
Yeah.
Is there a motion to that effect?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion carried. Okay. Next we have is the Veterans Affairs Commissioner appointment. As you know, we accept the resignation of Pam Landers. And we have the Veterans Affairs has given us a letter. They are recommending Joanne Thomas from Templeton. I know that she's very active in the Legion and stuff like that, so I think she would be a good one. When I visit with them, I told them they had to try to make sure to get a female if possible, gender balance, which on the Veterans Affairs can be kind of hard to do, but they have this gal is willing to do it, so I will make a motion that we approve Joanne Thomas.
I'll second that.
Moved in second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion carried. Okay, next we have is the letter of support for broadband. We have that letter here. You've all have seen this. Stephanie is gracious enough to get this set up. So is there any discussion on this? And this is an area, my understanding is north, west of Carroll.
Yeah, and I talked to Kevin Skinner about it, and it's not contiguous.
Is it just those blue areas on that map that we
Yeah.
got? So it's really small.
It's not very big, but and the problem is that the FCC has designated areas that are underserved, and those areas are usually served by a large IBOT like AT&T or Verizon or CenturyLink, or and so what happens is they don't go in there, they don't go for those dollars, they don't serve those areas. So small independents will go ahead and bid on those areas, but the maps are not very good. You know, I mean, there's that spot here, and there's that spot here, and then in between there, they're just as underserved as everybody. And so I think that's kind of a real problem. It appears that because of the funding that the governor has issued, that's where those grant dollars are coming from, 415 million, I believe it is. So there's going to be more of these coming up. There'll be more requests from this board to support broadband in Carroll County. So,
But it's 150 million for each of the next 3 years, right?
yeah. So it's a good start, but I would make a motion to support that effort.
And I'll second.
Then moved in second to approve the letter of support for the effort of the broadband in that area. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion carried. All right, committee reports.
I'll go first.
Who wants this? Where am I? Am I just supposed to mail it in?
Oh, I will send you the email right now
Oh, okay.
to the guy, if you could scan it, the email.
Yeah, I will.
Go ahead.
Tuesday, we had, Tuesday morning, the executive committee for the landfill. And they're still messing with the city on the ammonia that has gotten into their system. No resolution on that yet. Then Tuesday morning, Rich and I met with Zach Anderson on secondary roads. Thursday, I listened in on the Zoom Highway 30 coalition meeting. This week, tomorrow I have the jail. Thursday is the DCAT meeting. That's all I have.
Okay. I can go next. I gotta stop and think what I did do here. Last Tuesday, I did the scholarships. We did the final review of those for ISAC and got them done. And that was the only thing I actually had besides a lot of phone calls last week. This week, I have a conference board here at noon today. I was supposed to have a CADC board meeting today at noon. And then tomorrow we have the jail follow-up meeting. And then on Friday, I have the Yes Center board meeting up in Cherokee. That's my week.
I can go next. Last week, just a few emails and then did talk to Zach on secondary roads. And then Dean and I were on the emergency coalition meeting. A lot of discussion on vaccinations and where it's gonna go. And I think Dean can probably touch base on that better, sits on those boards. This week, yesterday, I had a daycare meeting. Actually, currently, right now, their numbers, they are all present. Every child is in within the facility. So they're gonna start looking at expanding and trying to get some more families in there. They have 4 new families, 5 children are coming. All the exit doors have been installed, and they did not qualify for the second round of PPP. They received a 4 out of 5 star rating, so they did receive a grant for $2,000 from DHS. You guys would like to look at their financials, it's right here. Let's see. Today, the assessor meeting, and then tomorrow, the jail, and that is it for this upcoming week.
I can go next. Last week I participated in the Highway 30 Coalition meeting. Representative Feenstra was on at the beginning. He gave a very good discussion. And he's very involved and very knowledgeable of the DOT. And so I think there's some good things that will come of that in the future. Hopefully he can help this effort quite a bit. Former Commissioner Dave Rose talked about the new appointments that'll be coming up with Nancy Maurer and Tom Riley. Supporting Nancy Maurer, she's from Shenandoah, and she's very good. She will support Highway 30 a lot more than Tom Riley. And so I think they were very supportive of Nancy Maurer and letters of endorsement for her to the governor. The DOT report was Highway 30, where when you go on Highway 30 and you see the new construction east of Tama, when you complete that, where you can see that you can see where the old highway, where the new part is. You can see Highway 21 up about a mile and a half away, and why we never went to that. I'm assuming that they're probably going to make that not an at grade, but I think that's going to be an overpass, so that's probably why they're going to start that process this next construction year. But the rest of it, Highway 30 from the 13 miles from Tama to that point should be completed in the next construction year as well. I think all they have left, I think all the grading's done. I think all that's left is just the paving. They're going to do some work on the Nevada intersection. Now that's an at-grade intersection. I don't think there's a light there, but I know that it has been a problem, I guess, over the years with accidents at that intersection. So I mean, that's one thing I know they talk about. They talk about the Rural 4, and that is one of the problems I think they have with the Rural 4 is those types of at-grade intersections. And I think if they decide that that's the last resort to go to the Rural 4, I believe that is going the wrong direction. I think they just need to make, they need to go around these communities as opposed to go through them. And then on Friday, then I did participate in the Emergency Coalition meeting. Carroll County's getting 300 doses a week through the Public Health Department. And I think 90 doses are going to McFarland Clinic, 90 doses are going to Manning Regional Hospital, and then the balance is going to public health. So as of Friday, 2,900 individuals have been vaccinated through public health. And the state promises to increase the allotments by 5% starting this week. Positivity rate in Carroll County is at 4.1. And as of Friday, there were 83 active cases. Everyone was very thankful of the mask mandate, and they hope it continues. I know that I spent quite a bit of time on the phone last week about situations that have come up with the vaccination process and public health, county public health. Hopefully some of those things will get resolved, and hopefully. I spent some time talking with Scott Jacobs, Calhoun County Supervisor. He's the chairman of the Region 5 Hazmat, and I'm the vice chair. And there are some convenience issues about signing checks, and so we got a meeting coming up next week, and it's also the election of officers. So there were some concerns about, could we make that more convenient for the administrator up there to get those checks signed. So I think we'll be touching on that. One of them was changing the chair situation a little bit so that somebody from Webster County would be on the in the executive board. But I don't know that you should be changing officers over a convenience issue. So I think they'll probably remain the same. Although we've come a long ways with Region 5 up there, there are some issues that still remain that need to be taken care of, and I don't know that they would get resolved or addressed if they were if we didn't have somebody like Scott and I to help resolve those issues. So I think it will remain that'll remain the same. This week I've got the conference board meeting today and the jail meeting tomorrow. I think that's it.
All right, last week on Tuesday, Scott and I met with Zach Anderson out at Secondary Roads. We had a discussion about some gravel. I think that you guys have all touched base with him on that project. That was very informative. I also want to jump back and thank the public health. I had an issue with a person that was caught in the middle between first and second, and they got that solved last week. So I want to thank them for that. And then on Wednesday, the Western Iowa Workforce Development, I met over in Denison. That is coming along very well. We are actually getting down to about got everything on cruise control. In fact, we're setting up meetings quarterly now, so that's a good sign that we're getting a lot of the side issues taken care of. Still getting into Iowa workforce buildings is hard to do. They are currently still closed and will remain that way for a little while. We did have a long presentation from Sean Fick. He is the dislocated worker person for the workforce board over in that area. He works for Goodwill Industries. He's one of the I've lost the word. He's a contractor basically. Very, very much up on the workforce. Great guy to have. I'm very glad if we have him as a service provider. Hopefully we can continue to deal with him after the change that happens in mid-year. Hopefully he'll stay and make the cut on that. Not much else to really report there. There's a huge, if you know anybody, there's a huge drive right now trying to find airplane mechanics. You can actually get some of the training in Sioux City. A very, very good payroll. We're talking the jobs that are $100,000 to $120,000 a year. Very good job. And they really have a huge need. Right now, they're transporting them in they're flying them in from the rest of the country. The next thing on the Thursday, I have Region 12. We did provide 2 more rural loans. One in Jefferson and one in Scranton area. We also earmarked some funds to be moved from the EDA CARES Act fund. We had a chance to what they call defederalize it, which gives us more options to use it for different loans. So that it gave us more options. And that loan fund that we're moving it to, there's a lot of demand for that right at this time. So that was about it for Region 12. On Friday, I spent the day in Sioux City touring mental health buildings. The gist of the trip, most of all, was to look at the Sioux Rivers building. Sioux Rivers owns a building in our mental health region, and they would like to sell it. A lot of the people, there were fresh faces, had never seen the buildings, so that was a good tour, and we got a chance to look at them. And we're putting together a committee to work on that purchase if we do purchase it. Upcoming, I have the radio and the paper today. This afternoon or at noon, we have the conference board, and tomorrow I have the jail, and I will be out of town the rest of the week.
Okay. Any comments from those in attendance? Okay. Any comments on the? Nope. Okay. Gordon, do you have anything? Next week?
Gill Day?
Bill Day? Not much else. Anybody else have anything else? If there's nothing else, we're in order for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
My second.
Been moved and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion carried. Thank you.
We got to do a group picture before we split.
That's right.